Have you ever imagined what the very first moments after the dinosaurs' extinction looked like? Not just millions of years later, but the very first minutes after the world-ending impact. Forget what you think you know about life on Earth. Most people believe the asteroid ended everything in one big boom, and after that, well, silence. But the truth is way weirder and even more brutal. Today, let us take a wild trip back in time to witness what really happened minute by minute right after the dinosaurs disappeared. What did the Earth look like when the rulers of the planet suddenly vanished? What survived? And what strange new life forms began to rise? Some believe only cockroaches and rats made it through, but there's a lot more to this story. And if you stick around until the end, you lines discover a bonus fact that lines blow your mind about what or who almost took over the planet instead of mammals. Ready? Let's jump right into the chaos. But be warned, the real story is far darker, more shocking, and believe it or not filled with moments of bizarre hope. So hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready as we answer, what happened right after the dinosaurs died? The asteroid hits, the day the world changed in a second. And imagine the sun rising just like any other day, dinosaurs going about their usual routines. Suddenly, a rock 6 miles wide slams into what is now Mexico, hitting with the force of 10 billion atomic bombs. Sounds made up. Scientists like those from the University of Texas actually measured shock quartz and found evidence all around the world from this exact moment. In the first second, temperatures at ground zero soared higher than the surface of the sun. Everything nearby was vaporized instantly. Dinosaurs within miles, no matter how armored or gigantic, simply disappeared. Even giant rocks melted. Within minutes, wildfires burst into life, not just locally, almost everywhere on the continent, and soon, the planet. But here's the real kicker. The shock wave raced around the globe in just hours, causing tsunami waves taller than skyscrapers and earthquakes so powerful that fault lines snapped like rubber bands. And if you think some T-Rex could have just run for shelter, think again, they all went down, fast. Oh, and that's just the start. Ever wondered what's worse than giant dinosaurs wiped out? What if the entire sky turned deadly against all life within hours? Did you imagine it was this violent? Comment below if this shocked you as much as it shocked me. The firestorm. When the sky started burning, if you thought the asteroid impact was the worst part, think again. The real nightmare started just minutes after. When the asteroid slammed into the Earth, it kicked up trillions of tons of rock and vaporized Earth straight into space. Within half an hour, superheated debris started falling back through the atmosphere all around the globe. It was like a non-stop meteor shower from hell, so intense that, according to studies led by Dr. Peter Schultz, the entire sky glowed red with scorching heat. The forests didn't stand a chance. Experts estimate that temperatures on the surface shot up for hours, literally cooking anything exposed. Even in places thousands of kilometers from the crater, wildfires were sparked almost everywhere. Some scientists claim that more than 70% of the world's forests burned to ashes in a matter of days. Imagine the air filling with smoke so thick you couldn't see further than your own claws or hands if you were a mammal hiding out. But wait, how did any living thing survive such a global oven? Did mammals just hole up underground and hope for the best? And what about the ice caps and the oceans? Weren't they supposed to be safe zones? Darkness falls, Earth plunged into night. Just when it seemed things couldn't get worse, the next act began. All that ash, smoke, and debris from blazing wildfires and the impact itself shot high into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun. Scientists call this the impact winter. Picture this. One moment, the world is burning. The next, it's plunged into a darkness so thick, midday looked like midnight for months, maybe even years. And this wasn't just about losing sunlight. With the sun hidden, global temperatures dropped dramatically, some researchers believe by as much as 20 degrees Celsius in certain areas. Plants couldn't photosynthesize, food chains crashed. Think about it. Massive herbivores had nothing to eat, meaning the few predators left were running out of meals fast. It wasn't just the dinosaurs shivering in the gloom. The oceans, often thought of as a safe haven, became apocalyptic too. Plankton, the starting point of almost every ocean food chain, couldn't get sunlight and died off en masse. If you like seafood, thank your lucky stars you weren't alive back then. But out of this endless night, some survivors began to stir. In this chaos, who had the best chances? Was there any hope for new life in this nuclear winter world? Toxic rains, when water became deadly. Surviving the fire and darkness was just the beginning. With the sky still choked in dust and soot, rainfall returned to Earth in the form of acid rain. That asteroid, the asteroid impact, vaporized huge amounts of sulfur-rich rock from the seabed and released it into the atmosphere. When these particles mixed with water vapor, they created acid, not your regular rain, but a deadly, corrosive shower. Animals and plants unlucky enough to survive the fires now faced burning rains that poisoned rivers, lakes, and even the ocean surface. Some researchers suggest entire freshwater systems were temporarily uninhabitable. Amphibians, always sensitive to environmental changes, were almost wiped out. But here's where it gets even weirder. As acid rain pounded the land, most seeds, spores, and fragile shoots didn't stand a chance. Only the toughest, most adaptable species survived, including some of the ancestors to the plants and animals we know today. It raises an intriguing question. If you could design the ultimate survivor, what traits would you give it? Because the Earth's next generation was about to be shaped in the harshest lab imaginable. Topic 5. The survivors who made it through the apocalypse. After all that devastation, it might seem like nothing could have survived, but nature always surprises us. So, who were the real champions of this prehistoric apocalypse? Forget the image of cockroaches thriving everywhere. While they did survive, they actually weren't alone. Tiny mammals, many no bigger than mice, snuck through, protected in underground tunnels and burrows where the heat, acid, and darkness couldn't reach them. Scientists have found fossilized remains and burrow traces showing these creatures went deep and stayed sheltered for weeks, sometimes even years. But they weren't the only ones. Certain species of turtles, crocodiles, and even early birds endured, many thanks to either aquatic lifestyles or hidden lakes and rivers. Some fish survived in just a few oxygen-rich pockets. And, believe it or not, fungi exploded during this period. With so much dead plant and animal matter, the planet briefly turned into a giant compost heap, meaning mushrooms and mold were absolutely everywhere. In fact, scientists have nicknamed it the fungal spike. It seems the secret to survival wasn't strength or speed, but rather being small, hidden, or just plain odd. Makes you wonder, if you had to hide from Armageddon, where would you go? And which group would step up as the new rulers of Earth? The lost giants. Why did dinosaurs disappear forever? Now, with so many wild survivors hanging on, it begs the question, why didn't any non-bird dinosaurs make it through? After all, some were massive, others were small and nimble. Shouldn't at least a few have squeaked by? Well, the truth is almost poetic in its cruelty. Dinosaurs, both big and small, were just too specialized. The enormous plant eaters needed tons of leafy greens that simply vanished in the darkness. Even the smallest meat eaters relied on delicate, already collapsing food chains. Generalists like mammals could eat almost anything: roots, bugs, even leftovers, while most dinosaurs were picky eaters. On top of that, dinosaurs laid eggs in open nests. Acid rain, freezing nights, and rampant predators made sure this was a very big problem. Eggshells couldn't survive, and hatchlings stood little chance. By contrast, mammals gave birth privately and could shelter their babies. And as heartbreaking as it is to imagine, the last slow echoes of dinosaur footsteps vanished within just a few years, leaving only birds their distant descendants to inherit the skies. But don't count out the other miniature survivors, because what happened to the oceans, lakes, and rivers during this time might surprise you even more. Oceans in crisis, a silent mass extinction underwater. While the world above ground looked like a burnt, frozen wasteland, the oceans weren't a safe refuge either. In fact, what happened in the seas is often overlooked, even though it was just as dramatic and even more mysterious. When the asteroid hit, those tsunamis and clouds of debris didn't just blast the land, they also created worldwide oceanic shock waves. Life in the shallow seas was devastated instantly, with coral reefs turned into piles of rubble and many large marine reptiles wiped out on the spot. But in the days and weeks that followed, things only got worse. The darkness from above meant sunlight couldn't penetrate the water, so plankton, tiny organisms that feed almost everything else in the ocean, died off en masse. Some species like sharks, certain fish, and even some types of turtles were incredibly tough, able to eat whatever scraps were left drifting by. But nearly 75% of ocean life vanished, including the mighty ammonites, those spiral-shelled relatives of today's squid, and many filter feeders. Why did some marine species make it? It turns out creatures that could burrow, eat almost anything, and handle low oxygen water did best. Are you noticing a survival pattern here? And guess what? As the oceans began recovering, brand new marine creatures started to evolve, setting the stage for the weird and wonderful sea life we know today. But this underwater cataclysm led to one more twist. How did the mass die-off in the ocean help mammals conquer the land and sky? Mammals rise, the unexpected rulers of a broken world. With the dinosaurs gone and the world forever changed, an unlikely group started to take over. Mammals, those small, furry, mostly nocturnal creatures, entered the spotlight for the very first time. But don't picture mighty mammoths and saber-toothed cats just yet. At first, mammals were timid, skittish, and barely larger than modern rats. Why did they thrive when so much else vanished? The secret was adaptability. Mammals could eat almost anything: insects, buried seeds, underground roots, even rotting leftovers from the catastrophe. Their warm blood meant they stayed active even as temperatures dropped, while reptiles and amphibians slowed down. And maybe most importantly, being able to shelter underground or in hidden places made them almost invisible to the extremes above ground. With so much space to explore and so little competition left, mammals diversified at lightning speed. Specialists call this burst of rapid evolution the mammalian radiation, and it's the reason why, a few million years later, you'd see everything from tiny shrews to giant whales. But this early age of mammals was not peaceful. The world was still dangerous and unpredictable. If mammals could adapt, who else might be waiting for their chance to rule? The birds that survived. Dinosaurs with feathers take flight. Wait, weren't dinosaurs extinct? Not exactly. The biggest plot twist: while all the classic giants disappeared, a quirky bunch of small, feathered dinosaurs known today as birds managed to survive the apocalypse. So how did these proto-birds make it when their colossal cousins didn't? Scientists believe birds' small size and ability to fly helped a lot. Many early birds were able to travel long distances in search of food, escape wildfires, or migrate to safer areas. Plus, some could quickly change diets, gobbling seeds, insects, and just about anything edible left in the chaos. But it wasn't just about being small or fast. Birds that nested in hidden spots and could care for their young in protected areas had a stronger shot at survival. Some scientists suggest that even the shape of birds' beaks and their ability to adapt to new foods were a game changer. And here's a wild thought. The songbirds you hear every morning, the crows, the pigeons in city parks, they're all distant relatives of those ancient avian survivors. Next time you see a bird, remember, you're staring at one of the few true dinosaur lineages, still strutting through a world they barely survived. But did every bird make it? And what about other mystery survivors that nobody expected? The new ecological order, a planet reborn from ruin as the years passed and the dust finally began to settle, the world slowly shifted from devastation to something entirely new. With forests burned and then regrowing, oceans stripped of life, then repopulating, and new survivors at every turn, Earth was basically a blank slate, a wild, unpredictable laboratory for evolution. Now, the landscape started to change. Open, fern-filled plains replaced the old, dense dinosaur jungles. New types of plants, like fast-growing flowering species and grasses, began to dominate, taking advantage of all the empty space and sunlight as the skies cleared. With the ecosystem reset, new interactions and survival tactics exploded. Mammals and birds experimented with new diets, new habits, and over time new forms. Without dinosaurs at the top of every food chain, small creatures had room to grow, both literally and metaphorically. This was the starting point for all the variety on our planet today, from saber-toothed cats to whales to elephants. And here's a fun twist. Even the pests like gnawing insects and nibbling rodents played a huge role in tearing down the leftovers of the old world and recycling that energy into the new. The planet, once a graveyard, was quietly becoming the vibrant world we now know. But what was the first super predator of this renewed Earth? And how did this dangerous new world shape the future of life, including us? The first new predators, a world without dinosaurs. With the old predator giants gone, a brand new arms race began almost immediately. But you might be surprised by who stepped into the spotlight. The very first top predators after the extinction were not giant, ferocious beasts. They were rather modest mammals and ancient bird relatives. Some early mammals evolved sharp teeth and hunting skills quickly. Scientists have found fossils of ancient carnivores called similestes or early creodonts, who despite their size were fierce hunters, preying on the new explosion of small mammals, bugs, and even baby birds. At the same time, one group of ancient ground-dwelling birds, called terror birds ferocerasids, would later grow to incredible size and become the apex predators in South America for millions of years. But in those first million years post-extinction, everything was about experimentation. No creature was safe, and every adaptation was tested by the changing, untamed world. There were no more T-Rex, no more mosasaurs ruling the seas, no more pterosaur kings of the sky. Now, the playing field was open. Mammals started evolving into new forms that would eventually lead to wolves, cats, bears, and millions of years later, the first primates. The diversity we take for granted today, the pets, the wild animals, the birds singing outside your window, all trace their roots to these risky, experimental survivors. But could this new world ever be stable? And what did these changes mean for the evolution of something totally unexpected like our own ancestors? The legacy of extinction. Why does this still matter? All of this happened about 66 million years ago, but the marks of that catastrophe still shape our world today. The asteroid impact was Earth's greatest biological reset, paving the way for the rise of mammals, modern birds, insects, and eventually our own species. That's why, when you see a dog, a flowering tree, or even a sparrow at your window, you're looking at the direct descendants of those ultimate end-of-the-world survivors. If it weren't for the asteroid and all the chaos it brought, dinosaurs might still walk the Earth, and the story of life and humans would be completely different. Bonus curiosity, could it happen again? Scientists watch the sky every day, tracking asteroids and comets that could threaten our planet. Impacts on this scale are incredibly rare, but yes, they are still possible. The good news: With today's technology and science, we can spot and maybe even deflect dangerous objects before they hit Earth. So, next time you hear about a Colossus asteroid, remember, our ancestors survived the absolute worst. And now, maybe for the first time in history, we're actually ready for whatever the cosmos throws at us. Do you think humanity would survive another asteroid impact? Comment yes or nitrogen monoxide and share this with a fellow science fan. Don't miss out. Did you enjoy this journey through ancient Earth? Subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell so you never miss a story. We have brand new science videos every single day. If you love learning something new, this is the place to be. See you in the next video.